Hello everyone, I'm Matt Little, and today we're going to talk about use of cover with a drill that I call 3 hits on a match. Now, I came up with the name from a saying that was really popular. It was a superstition right around the turn of the 20th century. And the superstition was if you lit 3 people's cigarettes off a match, the last person would die a horrible death, right? But the superstition actually comes from the Crimean War, and it came from the snipers in the war. Back then, people smoked in the field, and matches were far rarer in the field than cigarettes were. So you had to conserve the matches and light as many people's cigarette off the match as you could. Well, the first person to light their cigarette off the match orients the sniper to where they're at, right? The second person who lights a cigarette off the same match gives the sniper windage and elevation. Well, the third person who lights a cigarette gets shot by the sniper. So 3 hits off a match. The idea here is that whenever you're playing a piece of cover against an opponent who is shooting back at you, you can't give them the same view more than twice in a row, otherwise you become too predictable, right? And it's too easy for you to get shot. So we're going to be working 3 positions from either side of this barricade. Now understand that in application you may only have one side of cover, but for this we're going to treat this almost like, say, a concrete column in a parking garage. And we have both sides of the cover to play, so we have more options. It's easier to learn the principles that way, and you get training on both sides that way as well. So we're going to use 3 basic positions for this. There are others, but this is the easiest way to learn it. We're going to use standing, squatting, and kneeling. And I'm going to go over each of those positions, and then I'm going to talk about how we apply that and how we do that, okay? So the first thing I want to talk about is I want you to stand in a nice, neutral, athletic stance. Knees slightly bent, hips slightly bent, about shoulder to hip width with the feet. And this allows me movement in any direction without having to pre-adjust or prep for the movement, right? A lot of people like when they're standing to set the side that they're shooting from forward towards the barricade, shoot like this. The problem with this is that now I'm more off balance. It's easier for me to fall out and expose myself. And if I have to leave this position, if I have to abandon this cover quickly, I'm going to have to shift my feet before I can move. So we want to avoid that. If I'm in that nice neutral athletic stance, I can move in any direction without any prep, right? It makes me more versatile, it makes me more stable, and it makes it easier for me to do what I may need to do next. Now, the other important point with the standing position is that I don't want to lean any more than I have to. Now, obviously, there's going to be some upper body lean to make sure that I don't expose too much of myself to the threat. But if I try to keep my legs like this and just do this with my upper body, I'm now off balance and I actually wind up exposing more while I'm trying to expose less. I also wind up with the same problem we talked about with our foot position. If I'm leaning drastically out from here and then I have to go that way, I'm forced to do a plyo step or a drop step in order to be able to take off. If I use my quads and my hips and try to stay as upright as possible, leaning a minimal level, I can just drive from my hips and move. So that's something you really want to remember for all 3 positions, right? So standing, nice basic neutral athletic position, gun up first, exposing just the eye and the muzzle until I see the threat. What I don't want to do is come out like this and then punch the gun out. I don't want to be in Sewell, I don't want to be in low ready, I don't want to have the gun sucked in. I'm far enough away from the cover where that's not necessary. So gun out, muzzle and eyes should be all that I present when I can take the shot. Same thing on the other side, using the quad to come out, muzzle and eyes, I can take the shot. Squatting. If you are flexible enough to do a rice paddy squat, that's great. That is not the point of squatting in this context. I want my squatting position to be halfway between standing and kneeling to give me a third viable option for presentation. So about here, using the quads the same way. In and out. Same thing. Gun is up, looking at it, presenting just the muzzle, taking the shot, using the quad to come back. Like I said, if you're flexible enough to get in this position, that's great. That is counterproductive for what we're trying to accomplish. There's no need for it. So now I have standing, squatting, and now we'll do kneeling. For kneeling, there's a natural tendency for people to want to do this and expose themselves from cover this way. The problem with this is twofold, like we talked about with the other positions. This is not stable. See, I'm having to use my core to stay upright. It's not going to keep me in this position. It's easy for me to fall out and become overexposed. It's also very difficult for me to get back behind cover in a hurry if I have to. If I switch and put this knee up instead, right? Now I use my quads to come out and present, and I push myself back the same way. I also, if I need to move, can explode out of position like this. Because I'm stable and I have that good athletic position, I can do that. Now let's talk about a few principles for this as well. We talked about 3 hits on a match earlier, right? So whenever I do this, I don't want to come out 3 times and give the same position, the same exposure, the same picture to my opponent. I want to vary it up. The other principle you have to think about here is called broken rhythm. Anybody who's watched a boxer or any kind of striking fighter, like Muay Thai, anything like that, they have an uneven rhythm. Because if my rhythm is predictable, the opponent can see what I'm going to do as well. He can predict the next time I'm coming out, even if he doesn't know where I'm coming out. So when I do this, I want to give a different picture every time I come out. So that it's not predictable. I also want to vary the rhythm. I don't want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4. I want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make it unpredictable. The idea here is to be as unpredictable as possible to the opponent and to learn to capture his timing and his rhythm so that he's predictable to you. You know where he's going to pop out from whatever cover he's using. So I'm going to give a little quick demo dry, then we'll go hot after that. The other thing I want you to notice there is that before I made any movement, I came back behind cover. There's a natural tendency to do this. But I'm remaining exposed while I move, so there's no element of surprise, there's no unpredictability when I do it that way. All right, let's go hot, we'll do it live. All right, let's go hot now, we're gonna do it live. I'm gonna go through all the positions, try to give you guys a good example of a broken rhythm and random positioning. Remember, the idea here is to be as unpredictable as possible to your opponent while learning to capture his timing and predict what he's going to do so that you can put effective hits on him and he doesn't get effective hits on you. All right, here we go. All right, so that's 3 hits on a match. That is one of my favorite drills for getting the basics of learning how to play cover, to work cover against an opponent who's also trying to work cover against you. Hope everybody got something good out of it. See you all soon.